Thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted to put together this video covering this Lipo voltage sensor. And the reason is I was at the field today with a friend who's just getting into the hobby. We did what I'll call the second maiden of the Bixler quad plane. After my first crash, I was able to glue it all together, have a successful maiden. I'll share that in an upcoming video, but he had recently purchased the ZOHD Drift FPV plane. It makes me realize why I fell in love with this hobby, how exciting it is to see a new plane fly. But as he was flying, there is a 2-cell and a 3-cell option. He was flying with a 2-cell lithium ion, and I'd say he got at least 30 to 40 minutes of flight and didn't even use half of the battery. So we got it on the ground, took a reading, and based on calculations, we think we probably could get another 30 to 40 minutes. And what I wanted to do is cover this setup of the FrSky Lipo voltage sensor. I had it set up many years ago and I'm going to give it to him, but wanted to just share the process of the setup because this thing is a really cool sensor that you can use to integrate battery voltage telemetry on your Taranis. Before I dive into the details, let's just cut to a quick clip of Ryan flying this ZOHD Drift out at the field.
Wow.
And hopefully the next time that we're in the air, we'll be able to have total voltage and cell voltage from this sensor. But let me just demonstrate. This is actually a great tool if you want to get a reading. It has a really neat little display. Supports up to a 6S. I'm going to connect this 3-cell LiPo and we just plug in the balance connector. See that little screen has the total voltage and the voltage of each cell. The next thing I'll do is connect my receiver. Now this has been pretty beat up. Antenna wires have been chewed up from different props, but I use it for bench testing, servos, and various things. So make sure that you'll need a receiver that has a smart port, and this is the X8R. So what I'll do is go ahead and take the supplied cable. We'll plug it into the smart port. We'll have signal, then power, then ground. Then we'll take the other end and plug it into the sensor. I'll go ahead and do signal, power, and ground. Let me also mention that I'm running OpenTX 2.3.9. It's been a while since I've connected this sensor, so things have changed a little bit since I've done this from a few years ago. But let me exit out of here, and I've already done the binding process for this X8R. Now I'll mention that I left the default settings when doing the bind. No jumpers, which puts this, I believe, in mode 5. We'll have channel output 1 through 8 with telemetry. So let me just demonstrate that I left the default channel 1 through 8 with telemetry on. Let me go ahead and power up the receiver. I just have this old ESC running 5 volts to the X8R. I'm going to go ahead and connect this. A note about this status indicator, this LED is pretty handy. For example, if I disconnect the balance connector, you'll see that this LED will start speeding up and blinking, just letting me know that either there's a problem on either end of this, but when everything is working properly, this should be a slow blink, I believe 500 milliseconds. So 2 blinks every second. That's looking good. Let's go into our Taranis settings. In our default model setup, you'll know if you long press once on page, you'll see your telemetry screens. You can have up to 4. In this case, I don't have any yet. So let me go into our menu. I'm on menu 1. I'm going to long press and then long press again. So I'm on menu 11 of 12. And then I'll just scroll down, and under sensors, there is a discover new sensors option. Let me go ahead and click that. And you'll notice immediately it picks up this cell's sensor. This says 11.96, and that's what we're reading from this LiPo voltage sensor. That gets fed through our X8R, sent over to Taranis, and let's go ahead and configure this. Now that we can see the sensor, I'm going to select add a new sensor. We'll just call it, to keep it simple, I'll do cell 1. Then I'll go to type, press once, we'll do calculated. Formula, we're going to select cell sensor. That's the sensor that we saw listed on the main screen called cells. There's several different indexes. You could get the lowest voltage, you could get the change in voltage, the delta, the highest, but in this case, let's just do cell index number 1. And I'm going to exit out of that. And we can see listed down here, cell number 1. Let me go ahead and add cell 2 and 3. I'm finishing up cell number 3. You'll notice that we can do up to 6 cells. That's what this sensor will support. I'll go out, and you'll notice that we have cell 1, cell 2, and cell 3, all 3.98. So we have all of our sensor readings. Let's go ahead and just edit cells. It says 11.94, which is our total voltage. I'm going to go ahead and change this to total. So we have total now. Just a side note, we can only support 4 characters for the sensor name, but we have total C1, C2, C3. I'll click Stop Discovery, and I'm going to hit page, go to page 12, and let's make this just a simple screen with the actual number values. So I'm going to press and go through. These will be listed at the very end. You can display all sorts of information about your channels and built-in telemetry such as RSSI and your receiver voltage. And for the first value, I'm going to use total. You can also notice that there's a total minus, that's the lowest voltage, total plus, that's the highest, but let's get the current reading. So we'll do total. I'll go down and scroll to C1, C2, and C3. Let me exit out of here. And if I long press on page, we can now see our 11.89 and 3.98, 3.95, and 3.96 for each of the cell voltages. Let me exit back to the main screen and mention one last thing. If you guys have followed the channel, you'll know that a lot of times I like to fly with Pixhawk using a ground station, whether it's Q Ground Control or Mission Planner. And the benefit of using those is I get audible feedback with what's going on with the aircraft. And so I want to take this one step further and demonstrate how we can do an audible feedback once we drop below a certain voltage. So what I'll do is I'll go to my menu, and I'm going to page to number 9, and we're going to set up a logical switch. And what we can do with this logical switch is then we can specify a voltage that will trigger an alarm when we drop below a certain value. So I'll go to A is less than X for the function, and for V1, we're going to use our total sensor value that we set up earlier. So I'll go to total, and for demonstration purposes, we can see a current reading of 11.65. So I'll just set this to 11.7. That will immediately trigger this switch. Let me go ahead and scroll up, and you'll notice that you can see here already that L01, our first logical switch, is in bold. That means we've triggered the switch. For example, I'm at 11.62, 3, 4, 5. 5 is where the current reading is. If I go to 6, that logical switch is enabled. So I'm not going to set up any physical switches, which I could do here. Duration, the amount of time that we want this to be active, we're going to leave that null, as well as the delay. So this logical switch is currently active. I'll exit out, and then we're going to go to the special function screen. I don't have anything currently defined. I'll press, and what we'll do is we're going to do a special function on that logical switch. We'll look for L01 somewhere in this menu. Okay, here we go. There's L01, and we're going to specify that we want to play a value. So there's play track, play value, and we're going to set that value to the total sensor. So I have total specified, and then the very last, let's do
11.7 volts.
We'll just say every 20 seconds, just to keep it simple. So now you can see that L01 is bold, every 20 seconds when the voltage drops below 11.66 volts, which we're currently at 11.65,
11.7 volts.
it gives our current voltage. I'm back on the main screen. We'll go to our telemetry with a long press of page. We're flying. We can look down and see this. As you guys know, it's not always easy to look down at your screen while you're flying. So what is good about the logical switch with the special function is that we can get that audible feedback while we're in the air and we've dropped below a certain voltage. You'll obviously want to change these values based on your type of battery. Currently I have a 3S. You want to find that voltage that you feel comfortable so you don't drop too far below the recommended low voltage for your Lipo battery. But this is a pretty handy feature. This guy is about $20 and very worth the investment if you're not flying with a flight controller that can give you this type of information. I'll put a link to this sensor below the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And until next time, thanks for watching.